Testing stuff.
Pop, pop, pop. Ooh, pop.
Screamy deep bot. Let's go. Cool, I think we're live here. Alright, well, anyone who's joining us today, I'm Crit, Curse.
What up?
And together we're Anti. We do all of our own producing and mixing. Been about
like just over a year.
Yeah, year and a bit. Started producing like around the beginning of 2019, and it's only really come together in like the last like 6 months. And
it was kind of like not that serious. We kind of started doing it just to like fuck around.
Yeah.
Then it just became serious.
All of our stuff is just, it's a joke to like listen to sometimes. Like, it's good that we have like all of our old projects and stuff, but when we're actually like listening to it versus like the stuff that we have going on now, it's definitely a step up. And we're here to kind of talk about what we do differently from everyone else who does that. So I'm just gonna go and see if there's a link that I can give to you guys on Facebook to watch our live stream here. Perfect. Go here. It's good that we have like all of. Right, and I'm just gonna post that to Facebook for you guys, anyone who wants to watch us. All right, there. And then Wells, who decides to come in, watch this, and then I will also post it in my Instagram bio in case you guys want to watch that too.
Yeah, I should probably do.
Yeah, sorry, we'd be more prepared if there was an easier way to do live stream through YouTube, but until you actually get the live stream going, then you can't really have the link. So that's kind of the brutal part about this whole thing. So just copy the link. And yeah. Say we're live now. Add in our bio, quick. Ooh. Works. Cool. That works. And then I'll also put it in my personal account so that everyone's aware that we are live now. And get my bio. Right, and one more, then we'll get going here. Sorry for the wait. Fucking asshole.
That's me.
There. More, and we are good. All right. So I guess yeah, I guess I'll kind of do some stuff here. That off. All right. So let's see. Let's go to a beat that we were cooking up. Latest one we were. I want to say it was the 121. Maybe it's 145. This is the brutal thing, is that like I always tend to label my beats by date and then BPM. So sometimes I don't actually remember what they are or what they're called or what they sound like until I open them up, and then I know what they sound like. But maybe I'll come by a better process that way. If you guys have any better ideas for I don't know, the way that you label things, or that you tend to archive things for beats or projects or stuff like that, let me know. Our comments are open. We'll answer back whenever you comment. But let's see what we got cooking on here, because I don't remember what we got going on in this one.
Yeah, I kind of forget.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so this is a beat that we're cooking up right now. Alright, so this is a song that we're cooking up right now with a guy called Lil Goat 666.
Shout out Lil Goat.
Yeah. So first thing that I do whenever I start a beat is I always make sure that I have everything lined up here. Like what I usually do is I usually have my main melodies in like the first few tracks that I got going. Then I kind of build the drums around that. So I kind of get the feel for it once I start listening to the melody more. You know, I'll usually start off with either a kick and a snare and like a hi-hat. And then I'll just kind of mess around with those. And then I'll usually like go into like the same library from all my drum kits, and then if I don't like anything, like say if like the kick isn't hitting hard enough, or if the snare just isn't like meshing with that melody, even like the hi-hat, if it's like too heavy hitting or if it's too light, depending on the melody, then I usually just keep the same note structure. So say if I go into like hi-hat here, so you can see that I've got all of these notes played out right here.
Open up the actual panel roll.
Yeah, I'll actually open up panel roll. So there they are. So this is what I look at. Usually I make a basic layout in here to kind of get like a feel, but later when I'm actually like getting all the drums set up, then I actually mess around with these, adding like more like quarter or eighth notes like in there to kind of make rolls, higher notes, lower notes, even some that I do like dip outs, which you can see if we go into the snare. So we got a roll right here, and then we also have a roll on the kick here.
Which sounds
It does. It doesn't sound great by itself. If you listen to it by itself, this is kind of what you get. Like it just kind of, yeah. So it's nothing like crazy, but like when it all comes together, like, so you kind of adds like a little like pop at the end of that bar.
Little subtle spice.
Yeah. So yeah, so once I get all of my drums set up, then I actually start planning all the notes, which you can see as I switch the channels that I have, all the different patterns for all these instruments. Then you can see where I kind of like put them, like even crash, like it's simpler when you're separating all your channels, that I usually keep like stuff that's only one hits, like in like that 1/4 count, but everything else I tend to make in a full 8 measure count there. But yeah, another thing that I do as well is, you won't be able to see it in this project, but what we tend to do, or at least what I tend to do anyways, is that there'll only be one pattern. So when you open up a new project in FL Studio, there'll only be one pattern set up, and that's when you see this guy, which is your channel rack, and it'll have 4 of just presets basically. And for those presets, those are just like FL Studio, like trash, like drum tracks. With the one pattern in there, you can put all of your different channels in there, and you can make a pattern of all of, like, you know, your kicks, your snares, your hi-hats, your crashes, your perks, whatever you want in there. You can all lay that out in the channel rack, and then once it comes down to actually putting it in the arrangement here, then you can just right click and then you go split by channel, and then that way all of these will become their own channel, and you won't have like this weird thing. What it does when you have one pattern is that these tend to stick inside of each other, and then you'll get like this big jumbled up mess that you have to like pick apart if you don't split that channel.
Some people do make beats like that, like they'll endless patterns for like very like what they're doing, and
yeah,
but like
yeah, honestly, it gives me like more of a clarity of mind to actually see everything that's happening in front of me, and that way I don't have to like go back in, and then you see like if you go into a piano roll, then you don't see like you only see these notes of that specific instrument, whereas like if you went into like the actual pattern where everything's congealed up into one place, well then you're like looking like, oh okay, well that's hitting up there, that's hitting down there, and then you get kind of confused as what you're actually like moving and what you're, you know, changing in that arrangement. So that's just kind of like the first thing that I get to when I start making a beat. Another thing is sometimes we do use sample packs, but sometimes we do use this shitty keyboard that we have for melodies. It's, I don't know if you'll be able to see it because the cord is so short, but that's the M Audio, like, what was it, the 32? Yeah, the Mini 32. It is a piece of fucking trash. I like M Audio things. Like I've seen a lot of people with M Audio keyboards, and usually, like 9 times out of 10, they're pretty decent products. That is fucking trash, and I'll tell you why. We got it, and right off the bat, we plugged it into FL Studio, and it didn't work. So we went through this whole process. No, yeah, exactly. Like we went through this whole process of talking to the guy on, I think it was on the website,
Yeah.
I think it was a live chat. I think, and the support was great, but they told us to kind of go through all these different steps to unplug it, plug it back in. Then there's like a restart section where like you can like press like the 2 buttons for like the octaves or something, and then the mode button, and then it resets. But it seemed that the only way that we got it to work is with a 3-foot long cable, which is a USB to mini USB, not micro. And the only reason why it works is because it's on that 3-foot long cord. I tried to get a 9-foot long cord because this thing is attached to my computer, and I've got such a big desk. I'm trying to get it like a nice clean setup, and it's a gold tipped USB to micro USB. Trying to go into my keyboard, and it wouldn't read it. And then I was
like, nah.
No, it didn't feel it. It wasn't feeling it. So I plugged it back in with the 3-foot long, and that's the only way it works. And I guess it's just the delay of information trying to get from the computer to the keyboard, and it just doesn't like it. I don't know. It's very finicky, but that's what we do melodies on when we're making melodies, and it's terrible, and we hope to upgrade very, very soon.
We make it work.
Yeah, but I'd just like to say that people who make beats out of sample packs, I don't see a problem with it as long as it's in how do I say, just like use it once in a while. Like I don't think it should be something that you should rely on.
Stealing shit.
Yeah. Yeah, don't be stealing shit. That's also another thing. Like I know a lot of people who were getting into Suicide Boys, and that was like kind of the thing that I was thinking about earlier, was how did they get all the clearance for all these samples? Like they got all this Memphis sample music in their songs, and that's the thing, is that all their stuff was on SoundCloud for like the longest time, and it wasn't until later somebody uploaded all of their music without their permission onto Spotify. and I feel like that's kind of like the turning point between like them doing like a mixtape with Puya and then that happening. That's when they kind of got big.
I feel like they got lucky and they like blew and like kind of paid some of the shit kind of took from people.
Yeah.
In the beginning, because like I mean, it's hard to like not steal shit. Like we've got a song out.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
We can't even post on Spotify or anything. That's the only place that's not there.
Yeah.
And like everybody does that kind of shit, but like you're just straight up finding like, and I don't think you should be.
No. No, I definitely agree with that. You know, like I find that SoundCloud is a great outlet for people who want to do sampling and they don't want to get that copyright and they still want to be, you know, creative with that. That's fine. But again, with samples and you know, sample packs that you could download, use them in moderation. I think it's fine. Just, you know, try and be like as creative as you can. There's plenty of plugins out there that are free that you can download. I don't, you know, suggest pirating anything, but if you have money in the bank that you want to like, you know, eventually buy something someday,
yeah, there's so many free sample packs out there
fine.
That are like, I don't know, royalty free.
Yeah,
you can just splice.
Yeah,
and what is it, like $12?
Yeah, it's $12 a month, and you get 100 credits, which each sample is either 1 or 2 credits depending on the sample pack.
So there's like fucking 150 to 100 samples. More sample beats than that in a month. Like, start doing your own shit.
Yeah, straight
up. That's
a
lot.
Yeah, but for this song in specific, like we did our own sample. So we just made this on our keyboard.
Pretty simple shit.
Yeah,
like,
it's really simple.
It's kind of just like a backing melody.
Yeah, and
this beat's definitely like drum.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Some you're gonna get like, it depends on some songs. Like I like a lot of layers that kind of like pop out like in between songs, but sometimes even just having one sample or one melody while it's just being driven by that drum, like that 808 or that kick, like it just hits. It hits way harder than like some songs that I know that have like 3 different kind of things going on and they got like a different sample kind of like flaring up over there, flaring up on the left. Vocals are kind of like being phased in and out or something. Like it all just comes down to like how that song is feeling.
Yeah, sometimes less is more, especially when you like are. A lot of times I'll hear producers, and I'm not like bashing on it. Hear producers. It doesn't need that much. Maybe if you like put in that shit at like certain song when there's cool.
Yeah.
But when it's just like a main verse, you don't need a lot of shit. Vocals are so much of that. It's that when you're making the beat, you feel like it's there.
Yep.
As soon as vocals are on that, it
fills it right up.
Like
yeah.
Up.
So yeah, for our melody here, what we started doing as of late, what Colby actually had shown me before, I was just basically just taking a note. You can select a note that you got, you can hear it when you play, and then you can put it where you want it. And then you can choose how long that's going to be by dragging it, however much you need, however long you need it to drag on so it hits on that beat. I like to usually like view all of my notes. I believe we go, I want to say it's snap. Yeah, so I usually go 6 step. That's a nice spot for these notes, because you go and dig in, there's going to be, I think that's 24 cells you got there. So you know exactly if you need to do like a triplet, say like on like the snare or like on the kick, then you know exactly kind of how to space it out. The way that I like to do it is like if you're doing kind of like a half time, you do it every 8 cells. If you're trying to do like a triplet, it's usually like every like 4th cell, and so on and so forth. But so we. Oh, you cutting out? All right. Well, let's see. I will adjust just the input here. Yeah, I'll do that.
45.
Yeah, I'll do that like right there.
Let us know if this is any better.
Yeah.
I'll try and talk a little bit louder too. Sometimes I just get like quiet and fucking drunk.
But anyway, so yeah, so this is our melody right here. We got that going on. So like I was saying, when we paste it, you can paste it, but the way that we were doing is that I use the keyboard. So when I usually attach the keyboard to it, I'll play the notes, and I'll have the metronome playing, so that when I play the notes, they'll come up, they'll be recorded. One thing that when you're trying to do that with is that you'll have to right click the record button and you have to click notes. It'll automatically have audio selected there. You want to click that off and then just select notes. Then when you go into recording mode and you have that armed and you have your metronome, then you can play on your keyboard. It'll write these notes, and then some of them may not light up, or they might overlap each other. So when you're actually done doing that, you can go into, I believe it's...
You should be able to just press Control Q and it'll do it.
Yeah, that's the way to like quantize it, the fast way. It's just Control Q. I'm pretty sure if you go into tools, there's a quick so Control Q for quick quantize, and then there's quantize start times, or you can do Alt Q. So when you do Alt Q, then that brings up how much of that quantization that you want on your notes. But for the most part, like, it'll usually like line up with the cells, and then whatever ones that you see that kind of just don't fit, like maybe you go in and this one is like just a little bit off, then you can always just like whatever drag it back in, or maybe it's overlapping, you just drag it back, etc., etc. But yeah, so that's how I do the melodies, at least. And then for all my drums, I actually go into my IL shared data, and then I have drum kits. So these are all the drum kits that I kind of like mess with. We got some from Young Venom kits, Young Corpse. I got some boom baps. Then we got some synthwave drums. I particularly use a lot of drum samples from Loud here. They got some pretty decent ones, but if I just want something like, I don't know, like it's hard to describe, but some of these kits are all gonna be different, and some of these kicks just kind of hit harder. Like there's ones that are gonna be super distorted. There's ones that are kind of like more like the mid frequency. There's some that are more like in the low frequency. Yeah, there's just there's a bunch of different ones. You just kind of download a couple packs and see what works for you.
Yeah.
So I picked all of these out myself through various different packs, and then whatever you want that kind of sounds good in between there. So let me just kind of break down what we got here. So just turn off everything here. So I'll just kind of lead you up with the melody in the 808. Okay, so one thing when you're doing your 808s, and I don't know if everyone knows this, if you've YouTubed it, you probably know, but I'm just going to tell you right now. When you go into your 808s, say you go into your channel rack here, every sample that you put in there for drums, like one hitters and stuff like that, you always want to open that up. And this guy, okay, so there's two things. So here, there's going to be use loop points.
Turn that shit
Turn it off. It will loop endlessly, and it is so annoying. Like if you're the way that I kind of like do my drums before I put them into the song, because we're selected on song right now. When you're actually planning everything out, I usually go into pattern. So that will be the initial pattern that you start with, and when you build everything in that one pattern before splitting all the channels, I like to actually go into here. Wait, I did that by myself. But if there's like, say if there was a, what's the word I'm looking for? Say if I was in here. So if I already had like a sample, one that I had created either by Edison or if it was a sample pack sample, you can actually put a one-hit note starting on the first hit of that song, first one on that song, and it'll play the whole sample through till whenever it decides to loop around, or however long you have your channel rack for, you know, how many counts you're doing, etc. So what that does is that basically if you put that down and then you go and take off use loop points, then every time that pattern reaches the end of that channel rack pattern of that counts there, then that means it comes back and it'll play the same thing again, but it won't loop. Because say if that melody is longer than how long you're doing that pattern for, it's just going to loop over itself, and it's just going to create a mess. So I usually turn off loops on everything. So
same thing for 808s.
Yeah.
You want to go to the little wrench.
Yeah.
You want to cut self.
Yeah.
You want to cut yourself.
Yeah. You want to cut yourself. Not you, but that.
Because that basically means every time a new 808 hits, the last one that was playing cuts off as soon as that one hits. If you don't have it cutting self, then your 808s are just going to overlap, and it's just going to sound like fucking mud.
Yeah. So, yeah, we always do select. So this is going to be on, select it off, no use loop points, and cut self. It'll be like blank. Like it'll be like this when you do it, and just cut self. Yep. And so with 808s, this only applies to 808s. You can mess around with it if you want. With other instruments, this is just kind of like the attack sustain area of those samples. There's different VSTs that you can get that kind of warp that for you, which is basically just messing with the attack, so it can either hit really hard or it can not hit at all, and then you can kind of mess with like the release and sustain for that. So 808s, always a square. The reason for that is because usually a lot of them you'll see that are kind of like around like here, and then you kind of got something going like here, and then you kind of got like a sustain and a release kind of going like something like that. It's really weird. The reason for that is that that's just how the sample is. Like that's how the wave audio is already played out. It's gonna be like boom, and that's gonna taper off.
Yeah, like if you're using like a synth or something like that.
Yeah.
Like on a keyboard, like any keyboard synth or anything like that. It's gonna that's what's kind of gonna shape the sound of like what it's actually sounding like and how it cuts off, what its attack is, all that kind of shit. If an 808, you just want it to fucking hit, and then you want it to end.
Yeah.
As soon as you end that note, you want it to just cut off.
Yeah. Yeah. So like if you were using your keyboard and it was still in like the original position, it was like bleh. Well, the minute that you hit that, it's gonna play that whole sample. It's not hooked up right now.
Fuck.
It's because I had to switch the ASIO. It's not in Fruity right now. It's in the Steinberg, what I use for my interface here, just so that we can do our live stream. But yeah, once you hit that note on that keyboard, it's gonna play the whole sample. It's gonna be and it's gonna go on however long it could be. It could be a short sample, it could be boo. But with this guy in place, like a square, that means once you hit it and you hold it, then that sample goes for as long as you hold it, and the minute that you take your finger off of it, it stops.
Show you real quick.
No, that's the keyboard.
Oh shit, you're right. Boop. Let's go to this pattern as well. Basically, if you turn this shit off, first of all, if the attack's like that, the 808's not gonna punch in right away. It's gonna be like burp,
yeah,
and that's like you don't want that shit. Sustain, we'll turn that up. You do this. This is probably just gonna make this 808 sound like absolute trash.
Oh yeah. So I'll just play it real quick.
Yeah.
See, it's
don't want that.
Yeah.
So you turn this shit down, get it to be a nice square, turn hold all the way up.
like that.
Yeah.
So that actually has a punch. If you're finding that the 808 has a little bit too much punch, you can change the attack a little bit.
Just a bit.
So you can kind of hear it. Like if I push it more, see, it doesn't have like that pop at the beginning of it. You bring it back. See, it has too much, like has a lot of punch. But that's all like really up to the producer and the artist, how they want it to, how they want to feel, how the kick and the 808 are going to interact with each other in this song. And that's another thing. So yeah, just to clarify and to run back on that, every sample you get, take off loop points, cut self. Every sample like that. No loop points, cut self. You're gonna see like the kick and the snare, they all have kind of like this general outline. That's usually fine, unless again, you can always mess around with that attack time to either make it punch through harder or to make it kind of blend back into everything to sit in the mix. Because if you have too much snare like popping out in the front and you kind of want to like dim it down, then you always push that attack time. Like I said, there's always VSTs that do that too. So that's kind of the easier way that you could go about it. So yeah, once we got everything here, then basically we just kind of do like a rough draft and we put all in one measure to kind of see how it sounds like. So it sounds pretty decent. One thing that you can also do with your samples, because if you listen to our melody here that we made, that's using a plugin right there. Like we're using a keyboard, and it won't stop. So
Yeah.
if you don't want to have, say if you wanted to have like more control, if you wanted to chop up your beat, then what you would do is you would go into your mixer and you would go into master, or you can put it on the track if you want. I just like to put it in master because it has the least amount of plugins that I usually do.
You were just on it.
Sorry. And we can just go into Edison. And we just go into Edison, we just arm that for recording, and then we take the one that we want to record, and then you just play it. You don't need to.
Shit. That's actually never how I do it.
So that's how I do it. He doesn't do it
Fair.
that way, but I do it that way. It's a lot simpler, in my opinion. But so that's your sample right there. That's your melody. You can press this button right here, which just trims the side noise, which basically this guy, because it's not always gonna start on the first hit when you're doing that record. You're gonna trim that, and then once it detects that first note in there, that's where we're gonna take that. And then you can choose to take that, and then there, that's your sample. But see, like if I decided to chop it, see, then you can choose to stop it. Whereas if, I decided to chop this, see, you kind of still get that same reverberation of the last note going into the next measure. So if you wanted to chop up your beats, that's the easiest way to do that, to kind of give it like a stop, cut up section, and you can make it kind of sound cool that way. But right now, I'm just not going to deal with that. But yeah, so after I'm kind of done making that sample, I usually don't change it up too much. I might have maybe a detune, like I'll put it into another root note for that key of that melody to play in. I usually do with halftime, and halftime is a great free plugin that does that. You can just add a halftime and then put it as an eighth note count, so that every every time that it hits from the eighth note, it actually follows along with the whole song, because you can do it from like a fourth, half, or like the full note, and like it gets kind of messy and it doesn't chop up the whole thing as it would in regular time. I know I'm kind of confusing myself. It like basically like halftime, just it's at half times, but it's got like a halftime. It's also got a kind of like a 1.5 time and then a 2 time. So depending on what you're using, if you want something to kind of like follow the same tempo, like it's gonna hit the same notes on the same tempo every time, but you want to detune it, you can use halftime and put on the eighth note, and it's gonna sound good. Otherwise, it's not gonna do the whole measure in the same time.
We didn't do that on this.
Oh yeah, I didn't do it on this beat, but that's just sometimes what I do on other beats. For this beat, I might just add like another melody on top of it if there's going to be like a little flare part to our beat. But otherwise, I'm just leaving it as is and for now. So this is all the stuff that I use. This is just alone for the melody here. I should really color code these. I haven't done that or labeled these yet, but
we know what's up.
Usually, if I like. If I go into my channel rack, then I know where everything is. And I'm like, okay, so that's tied to that, that's tied to that, that's tied to that. So that's the way that I kind of do it. And you'll notice that I actually don't have anything running it to the master, and that's because I actually have a bus here. We'll go into that later. But so what I always recommend people do, always equalize. Use your cuts on your equalizer first, EQ first, before you do any compression. The reason why that is because anytime that you have a sample or any notes that kind of like have like a really bad frequency and you want to cut it out, well, if you compress first, then it's just going to raise the volume of that really bad frequency, and then you have to make an even bigger cut into that frequency, and it can really deaden the sound of any samples or any instruments that you're using. So I always say EQ first, then you do your compression. Then what I did was I added a flanger on there and a little bit of saturation with Fruity Squeeze, just to kind of give it a little more substance on the ears. Subtle spice, yeah.
We call that subtle spice.
Subtle spice on the left and right ears, just so it kind of fizzles, pops, a little bit. And then I added another EQ just to kind of take out any unwanted frequencies. See, I kind of cut right there because adding a bit of that saturation in the high end kind of gave it too much. So I took out that high end. And usually I don't really like any of my samples riding past like 10K because it doesn't really like register in your ears. Like for me, that pocket is kind of for the hi-hat. And I'll show you guys in a minute, but so right here, I always do a cut around 120 because all this is just noise. It's just gross noise. It may have like clips or cuts that you would hear, and it can really not bring in the whole beat together. Like you can like hear a sample and then it'll run all the way until the end of the sample, and then it'll restart because you're using that sample again in the next measure, but it might have a click or something in the beginning of that sample, and that's where all that noise comes from, usually all in this area. We have a big boost here, and that's just because the sample the VST plugin that I'm using doesn't have a lot of body. So I kind of boosted that up a bit, and then I gave it a nice compression here. I usually do either 2 or 3 for a ratio, kind of have a decent fast attack on it and a little slower release. Usually the auto gain's on, but I usually take that off so I can pump up the game as much as I want. And yeah. And then just flanger. This is kind of a fun way of doing math. So the rate, I believe, is the actual math part. So
yeah, you just take 60,000 divided by your BPM,
yeah,
essentially, and then that'll link the flanger rate up with the actual tempo of your beat.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, with your beat. So like your sampler or whatever will actually like, because flanger basically just like makes your melody go like throughout the whole like time it's playing. If you don't match up the rate with your BPM, it's just gonna like kind of be all over the place. It's not gonna sound right at certain parts.
Yeah, no. So I actually use that math a lot. You'll see it in the flanger VST that we're using, and I actually use it a lot in like the reverbs that I put in, and delay times sometimes. Depends on what VST I'm using. And then the Fruity Squeeze. This one's kind of difficult to kind of like use if you don't use it right, because you kind of got to match the same frequency that is being played with your melody. If it doesn't match up, then you get kind of a gross frequency that just doesn't match up with how everything's sounding. Like you'd be able to hear it. You're like, yeah, like it sounds like it's got that saturation, that degradation to kind of give it that like little crispy, like, you know, poppy sound, but not too much. But then it could be the wrong frequency, and it's just like it doesn't sound good. Like you can hear it without it, so without the squeeze, and then with the squeeze. See, it's very subtle, but you can hear that like little bit of saturation that it's got kind of in the high end, and that's kind of what I was going for. So that's kind of what I do for the melody. For the 808, it's a little bit different. So with the 808, what we've done here is I've actually routed the 808 to one track here, and then I've actually routed it to this track. The reason why that is because there's a number of ways you can do this with your kicks and your 808s. So with your kicks and your 808s, if your kick and your 808 hit at the same time, at the same volume, well, usually 9 times out of 10, your kick is going to be drowned out by that 808. And the reason why is because it usually kind of hits around like the same like frequencies, and the bass is just going to swallow everything. So there's 2 ways that I know of that you can kind of get past this. There's one way that I saw where a guy has his 808s as a wave sample. So he probably took his 808s where he wanted them, probably put them on a piano roll, and then probably put them in like Edison. He recorded it, and then he put them in where he wanted them to hit, where the piano roll was. And then he would take out little notches in the playlist by zooming in, say like this, where our kick hits. He would just cut it and just kind of do that. So like the kick would hit, and then the 808 would follow after. But I mean, you would probably do like that. But that's not the way I do it, because that's a lot of work for me. The way that I do it is I actually put a limiter, and I put a side chain on it. So basically what the side chain means is that every time that the kick hits, it's going to tell this 808 to drop in volume and to come back up. So this is my kick right here. You can see that it's side chained to here, and it's going to this track. We'll talk about this track later, but this is side chained right here. So every time that the kick hits, this guy's gonna duck down, and this is where I put the threshold. You can mess with the threshold. The ratio for the compression, I usually leave around 3 or 4. That's usually a pretty decent amount to do that. And then the release time is another mathematical equation. It's the same equation. That's 60,000 divided by your BPM, and then you actually divide that by 2, and that should be your release time. Because if you don't do that, if you put it at the double the release time, so say 414, what would be, then when that 808 ducks down and then it comes back in, well, it's coming on like the next count. So it'd be like 1 2, and it'll be like the next measure.
It comes in on the off beat.
No, that's the thing, is that when it's doubled, it comes in on the next measure. So we're like 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4, like it kind of like coming around 3 or 4. Whereas like you kind of want it to be like boom, 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 like that instead of like boom, 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 right? Like you get a nice fast release time to kind of like bring it back in instead of letting it die and then you don't really hear it for the rest of the song. So yeah, so that's the sidechain. And then I don't add any effects on this for the 808 because if you put any effects on the 808 on here and then you put the sidechain on there, well, the sidechain is basically going to take all those effects on that 808 and it's going to put it on the kick. So I actually route that 808 into here. And then this is where I put my first EQ. I take out anything below 20 hertz because that really doesn't matter. Anyone who like leaves that in, you're taking away energy from your song of how loud it can be in the final mix. So you take that out. I usually do like a soft roll off of about 12 dB, and then I kind of boost up like where that 808 is hitting in some areas, so like a little bit of that low end, a little bit of like that kind of like low mid end to kind of give it like a little more body. And then I actually cut it off around 5,000 hertz because this is also energy you're taking away from the whole song in general. If you have, you know, your 808 and it's got a lot of saturation or it's got a lot of energy in the high end, well, it's taking away everything that has a high end energy, like your hi-hat, your snares, or any other, you know, little high frequency samples you could be adding in your song. So that's where I put my cuts there. I'm actually not finished with this 808 right now. This is just kind of like a rough project that we just started a few days ago, so I haven't really been doing a lot on it. I just kind of got started on it. But so that's what I've got there. And then this is the funny part. If you want to do oh, I think my camera just died. Yeah, it sure did. Okay. Well, while I'm changing the battery, I'll kind of give you the lowdown. So basically, why I have that routing into two different channels right now is because one is for distortion and the other one is going to like the master bus that I'm using currently. So the reason why I did that is because for distortion, you can actually add in however much distortion that you want in the mixing long run. So like at the end of the mix, you can actually add in how much distortion you want. And then you can say, you know, add more bass, add more distortion. It all works out that way. And then, sorry, I had to move the camera a little bit. There we go.
Get my BK cups out of there.
Yeah. I'm just gonna make sure. Okay, so I gotta turn back on the window capture for you guys 1 second here. There we go. We're back.
We good?
So, yeah. So what this track does basically is this is just the distortion. Since this is being rooted there though, this is actually like we can turn this off, and if we listen to the 808, it's still gonna play the 808, but you're not gonna hear any distortion. So when we turn that on, and then I can like turn that distortion up or down however much I want. See, it gives it a lot of body, a lot of just a little bit, a little kick, you know, what you need in there to kind of fill up when you only have, say, like a one melody in there, like I do right now.
Subtle spice.
So that's how I do the 808s. You can do them like your own way. I also add compression and some other little saturation things I do with my 808, but I'll dive into that maybe in another video.
Yeah, let's start fucking working on the beat.
And then this is the kick. I haven't done anything to it. I just rolled it off on the EQ. I always roll my kicks off at 30 and then another one at 5,000 again, because you don't need any of that energy in there, and you don't need any of that energy in there, mainly because the 808 is going to take up that 20, and it's still going to kind of give it like, that's the reason why you do the sidechain, is because a lot of this information in here in the kick is still going to carry over, you know, when you're hitting both the 808 and the kick, but because I have the sidechain on there, it's taking away a little bit of that energy of that 808, so the kick can hit harder. And then you can always like add more energy if you want, but honestly, I think that looks pretty decent. If you want, you can always just kind of shape out your kicks. See, we're kind of taking out like a little bit of like kind of like boxy noise, and then that's taking out all the energy out of the low end, so it just sounds like a piece of shit.
Sounds like a fucking piece of shit.
Yeah, it's not great. But that's just what I'm started on right now. And then I believe I'm just gonna pull up my champ. So that was the kick. We got our snare here. I haven't done anything to the snare either. Usually with snares, I usually don't add compression. Usually, because it's usually it depends on the sample. But if your sample's good, then all you really need is an EQ on it, and I just boost up a little bit of that, like boop, that nice little like EQ in it, you know. It just boop, like if I were to listen to it, let's just solo out the snare here. So like that little and that little, you can't hear that well, but it's a little just energy in like like a big body punch is basically how I describe it. It's just a punch. Without those, like it kind of like makes it sound like a regular snare, but it doesn't punch through where the bass and the 808 kind of like meet up. So I like to add a little bit there, kind of give it a little pop, you know. And then hi-hats, honestly, I don't even compress hi-hats either. Maybe people will hate me for not compressing a lot of things, but honestly, to my ears, some things don't need it. I just tend to EQ a lot of it. I roll a lot of energy off from those hi-hats, because a lot of that energy between 1000 to 2000 is just really tin sounding, and you don't need that, like a lot of click. Like, let's solo that. So you can't really like hear, and you can see where that energy is coming from. So anything that below that, you don't need that. That's taking energy out of the song of how loud you can make the song at the end of the mix down. So, you know, I see where it starts to peak, and I actually kind of take either 1 or 2 dBs out of it, and then I boost a little bit of that air where it's just kind of like not peaking at all, but it has a little bit that like nice little click. I gotta boost that up right there. It makes it sound a little bit cleaner. And then I just got like this, you know, gross sounding hi-hat, you know, a little pop, nothing crazy. It's just a little accent. Crashes, I actually haven't done this yet, so maybe I'll run that through with you guys. So with with crashes, I kind of do the same thing, although you can see that the energy, a lot of it is actually that unneeded area between 200 to 500, and I kind of tend to roll off actually a little bit more than that, just at the 1000 mark, so it doesn't really have like a big like crash hit. Like if I let that run, you can hear that someone hit that with like a mallet or like a stick. So we don't want to hear that when we're making our song. So I'll roll it off right there, so you can just have the nice clean cymbal. And then wherever it's peaking, I tend to take another 2 dB out of there, just so it kind of doesn't peak, and you can still get a lot of body out of it. Maybe that frequency just doesn't sound nice when you're doing it, but with the delay, I do fruity delay, and then I usually do ping pong. So that means when it hits, that delay is gonna go left, right, left, right. Depending on the song, if it's a slower feel or if it's a faster feel, you're gonna be using this knob to kind of determine when you want it to hit. It already knows what the tempo is, so this is just like it's gonna hit every what is it, every 4. I can't remember the word right now. Anyways, usually 4 is like the one that I go for. If you're doing a faster beat, if you're doing slow, like 8, you can usually get away with. But for this one, we're doing 4. And then the cut, this is your frequency cutoff, so this will determine how much of the sound that you originally played with your cymbal, that's the original sample. This will determine how much of that frequency that you're getting from that sample still reverberate in your delay. So like if I went all the way down, like down here, you can't really hear anything. That's because I cut off a lot of the frequency below 1000 hertz. So you're kind of getting a little bit more now. There we go. So now we're kind of getting to the area where it's in a nice area that you can hear the crash still come through. See, and I like to kind of play with that until I kind of sounds good in my ears. And then this feedback level determines how many times it's going to delay. So it always starts at 50. It's not a bad way to start. If you do, something crazy like 84, it just goes on forever. If you do less, dies off right away. So I kind of like to go anywhere between 30 and 50. Yeah, kind of like there. I think that's good for the song. And then this is the input volume. So this is actually the volume that determines how loud that delay is going to be. So if I turn this all the way down, you can't hear it. You can kind of hear it. Then you can start to hear it even more. And so you gotta play with this. Honestly, I kind of leave it, unless it's like a vocal part that I'm trying to delay. Usually with anything that's like a sample or an instrument, I'll usually leave anywhere between 60 and 80%. Just to kind of give it a little flavor flav.
Subtle spice.
Subtle spice. Yeah. And then we got our perks. So I got a cowbell here. Nothing crazy, honestly. Especially since the sample that we use for that, we actually used a piano roll for that as well, I believe. Yeah, so I used a piano roll. So all the notes hit the same. They're all the same velocity. They're all the same volume. So I actually don't have any problems with compression that way. There's no quiet parts that I need to worry about. So I just leave it. Again, I don't use a lot of compression on most samples, but it really depends what it is. And then I just kind of did a little cut off there. So right there, you can see a lot of that energy is hitting there. I just took a couple of dBs out just to kind of bring the energy back down from those frequencies and give the rest of the frequencies life so that you can hear everything else in there. Otherwise, it wouldn't sound as great. Like, I'll play without. So you kind of hear like it's kind of got like that like mid frequency like boost in it, and it just sounds gross.
Not everybody has the ears that you.
I know, it's really a blessing and a curse. I can hear a lot of things. I've got a dumb audio engineering ear. I can hear everything in songs that people can't hear, and thank you, Mom, because I know that's your dumb gift. But it helps in the long run for me. But it also really bothers me when I can hear things and other people can't hear them. Yeah, I don't know. Just use your own ears. If like, it's nice that we're a duo group, so I can, if I hear something and he hears something, he can hear something that I can't hear, and vice versa. Can bounce that off each other and kind of come down to an agreement of what the happy middle ground or who's right, etc. But that's just for our cowbell right there. And then we got a little chant here. Nothing crazy. I actually turned that down a lot. And then I just added, again, an EQ because I didn't see any means to do a compression because it's only got one hit. and it's the same every time. One hit samples, I usually don't find you have to compress unless it's maybe like a kick or an 808. It really depends. But melodies and stuff, you can do some compression, as well as vocals always compress. But yeah, I just did a nice roll off here because you can see in the energy that there's not really anything there, but you just kind of want to stop it in case there's like a click in there you don't want to hear later in the song. And then we go to this track. This track, I'm just using an imager, a stereo imager at that. And the way that I do this is I usually take anything that's like really low frequency based, like the kick and the 808, and I slam it down the middle. This means it's going down into mono, this goes into stereo width, etc. So I always have this guy set at the bottom, just all the energies in the middle. And then you can kind of play with however you want with these ones, but there's certain limits. You don't want to go above like 20 in this band. You don't really want to go above like 40, that's 30 to 40 in this band, and then no more than like 50 in this band, because the more that you start spreading things out, you're gonna get phasing issues. And when you get phasing issues, it sounds like it's like in a tin metal can, or like it just sounds shitty. So the nice thing about this plugin is that you can go here, and between these two, this is the it's called the correlation trace, but basically how I see it is like this is kind of like how, if there's any phasing issues, or when you're doing any let's say rendering, if you're going from 24-bit to a 16-bit, so you're doing what's it called? It's gonna actually drive me nuts if I don't remember. Let's just say we're gonna do that. Dithering, there we go. If we're doing dithering, if we're doing it from like a lower sample, or from a higher sample rate to a lower sample rate, well, this will kind of show you if you'll lose a lot of information doing that. So I'll just kind of show you what I mean. Say we'll just solo this. Right, I have to turn all my tracks back on. There we go. So right there, you can see that blue line there. That means that we're good. This is fine. We don't really want it to dip below this red line. Then we just do that with all the other ones. So here's our like low to mid. See, that's floating along nice. A little dips down there, that's fine. Honestly, it's okay if, so we have a little dip right there. It's fine if it dips a little bit. As long as it's not dipping consistently, then we still have a lot of quality in there. That way we won't be losing when we're dithering. And then the same thing with like your mid highs and your high frequencies. I actually manually set these in. If anyone else has like a different grouping of frequencies that they do this for, let me know in the comments, because like this is just kind of like how I go by ear. I got all my really low stuff, and then kind of like my mid all in there, and then this is kind of going to like the more like tinny like mid highs, and then we got all of like the high end stuff to spread out. So just let me know. But I always have the stereoizer on here. This is kind of like the delay. Yeah, the stereoizer delay. I usually don't screw around with that too much. I still have a little bit to learn about that, but that's fine. But that's what I have just on this bus. That's all it is. I actually do all of my mixing in mono. So when I play a song, this is what it sounds like. So it sounds very, universally flat. Doesn't sound like it's very exciting through the headphones or your monitors, whichever ones you're hearing through for your mix. But I always do my mixing in mono, and the reason is because usually that means all of the levels that you're gonna hear are true. That's what it's gonna translate to when it goes back into stereo, and you can kind of hear where you want to get like those different instruments to pop through, or how everything's meshing together in the same energy in one channel mono. So that's what I do, and then I go back and then I stereoize it again and listen to it. But you can see like all of my channels here, they're all in different volumes except for this one because that's just our main 808 channel route, and then it goes into all these guys. But yeah, that's just kind of like the layout that I have of most of our beats. That's how I get started on them. But I always route them, and I always take off the fruity limiter on the master because that is garbage right now. Like, you don't need that on your master, especially when you're doing a mix down. I don't really add too much to this channel. As for like sound, this is kind of like the rule of thumb that I have. When you're doing a mix down, I always give it minus 6 dB of headroom. So that way when you come back to it, then you're going to do another mix on it. You're going to add some vocals or, you know, whatever you're going to do to your next mix down, add some compression or another EQ, saturation, whatever you want to do to make that mix down brighten up, and then get it ready for a master, and then you do all that stuff. Always give yourself headroom, because if you give yourself like I've seen some people give themselves like 0.3 dB of headroom. Well, it's like you give that to a producer or, you know, a master or engineer, like they don't know what to do with that. All they can do is they can lower the volume, and then they have to try and work with what they got to make it, you know, sparkle, and that really limits what you can do with your songs. So I guess we'll kind of get into more beat making here. Okay, so usually it really depends on the song. Usually I like to kind of give it like a little intro. Some songs I've heard, they just dive right into it, and that's fine. I think a lot of my format for my songs, it just has an intro, it goes right into it, and then it usually goes into like a verse. So like usually I'll like maybe like take out like the 808, and then I'll like maybe keep the melody, or maybe keep like 2 of the melodies. It depends which ones that I'm using, and then I'll bring the 808 back in, I'll bring the energy back in, so that it kind of gives like 2 measures of like, you know, kind of like something to introduce yourself, and then another 2 to like finish it off, kind of thing. So for this one, we're doing 3 parts. We're doing my part, his part, and Lil Goat's part. So
Lil Goat, we
gotta make 3 parts in here that are gonna work for everyone. And that's another thing when you're going to be doing this, is you're going to want to change up some things for each part so it doesn't sound the same every time it comes back in. So let's go with that. So we'll go intro. Okay, so right off the bat there, I want to like either chop this or like make it like dip out and come back in to kind of like really hit on like that first one. So
you gotta record that, man.
Yeah, honestly, I think that's what we're gonna do, is we're gonna record that sample so that we can chop it up. It just makes it a lot easier in the long run rather than using piano rolls, because then it can get messy that way. And if you wanted to chop it to kind of, you know, do like a, I don't know, like every like kick hit you do, and you just like make like that sample chopped up with that kick hit. Well, you can't do that with a piano roll because it's just going to carry those notes over. So we're going to go in here, and I'm just going to select this track, and we're going to record that through Edison. So we'll just play that. Alright, so there we did a recording, trim up the sides. Now I always say that it's good to go over a little bit your initial sample than rather being short. That causes less problems in the long run. So once you're done recording that sample, then you just drag it onto your playlist here, and then you're gonna see that it's a little it's a little long, right? But that's fine, because all we have to do is just shrink it down, zoom in on it, and just make sure it stops on the next measure there, so it's the same length as these guys, and then we can just take these guys out. But I usually, what I'll do is, so I'll explain that in a second, but I'll leave the initial instrument in there, because if something messes up in the Edison recording progress, or just I want to add like another layer and I don't know, I can't remember what instrument I used, I just leave it in the project and then I'll come back to it if I need it. Otherwise, I just make an audio track, what we recorded through Edison, and then I put it on the track again. So we already did, so here's another thing. We recorded this with all the effects happening on this guy. So I actually should have turned all of these off initially, because that's going to make it harder now. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually just going to redo all that. We're going to delete this, and then we're going to turn off all of these effects. So we're just left with the bare sample by itself. See, it's got a lot of boom in the low end, and then it doesn't have a lot of body in like the mid end, like it's very quiet. So you can tell that all the effects are off now, and then we can do our Edison recording. So, excuse me, we're just gonna press new, and then we're gonna arm it again, and then we're gonna do this again. So that's done. Trim up our sides, drag it onto the playlist arrangement, close Edison, zoom in and tuck this guy in there, and then we can take our piano rolls out, put that guy in, and then we can just paint it like that. And then when you make a track through Edison like that, it's an audio track, it will come into audio and it goes unsorted, etc. It's fine. You can just go into all. It'll appear at the bottom here. And what I do is I'll just hold Alt, bring that all the way up here so I know that it belongs with the melody, and I put it on 1. And then we go back into our mixer and we turn all of these effects back on. See, and then we got all of our effects back on there. Oh, excuse me. All right, so now that we got that going, turn all of our tracks back on. So what you might find when you're doing Edison tracks is that they're quieter.
Yeah, that's why I don't do that.
Yeah. So you might want to play with it. Alright, and I'm just gonna double check. Okay, so we're good. Although that one sounds like it comes off. So I'm just going to take a quick peek here. Because what happens sometimes if you paint them, for some reason they come off. But it seems fine. Okay, so
you should drag them all back 1 notch.
Well, that's the thing, is that's the start. So I'd have to.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's starting late.
Well, that's.
Stop pulling.
No.
I'm pretty sure that's what needs to happen.
No, that's not a good way to do it, and I'll say why is because then all of them are moved forward like this.
No, they're not. You move it back because it's coming in late.
No, that's not the way it works.
No.
That's fine. We can just go back and move all these. That's not what I asked for, but thanks for coming up. There we go. Okay, so what I might actually do is I'm actually going to start here. This is actually an easier way.
I'm gonna save your life right now. Just don't record.
Why?
Just press record at the top, arm the track you want to record. Press that, right click it, make sure your audio.
Yep.
Turn all the effects off.
Yep.
Start it right at the start and just press play. Every other.
All right, let's find out. Okay, that's another way you can do it. Thanks, Colby. And then we'll just.
I just feel like Edison sometimes gives you like a weird fucking.
It does.
Input lag, and that's what probably caused that.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll take that off. Okay, I think we're good there.
Yeah, sounds better.
Okay, so then actually, you know what? I'm just gonna leave that up there for now. We'll leave this down here as our melody, and then I will tie that guy, so that goes away. This is our new one. Yeah, automatically went to track 12. We're gonna put that back at 1 because that's where we want our melody. And then turn all these back on. Now, there's an easier way that instead of using your mixer board here, and I would actually recommend doing that way, but same, just like down here. The way that I do it is I actually just add more gain to my compressor, because you'll notice that now we don't have a lot of energy coming through here. And there's still not a lot of energy coming even past to 0. So we can just add a little bit of wet gain. Then you can kind of adjust how much you want in there, but again, you do it in mono. Okay. So now we've got our melody here. I'm gonna post it right there. And then what we can do is we can chop it up or something. Like, take this out. So like, you take that, post it like there. And then I usually cut these short because you don't want it to drag a lot when you're hitting those notes with the kick, because then it doesn't sound as like clean when you're hitting them. Then you can take, what I do is I just do that, and then we can put them where they hit. Or you can do like, you know, something different, like you be like, take this out a little bit earlier. Even and then we can be like, say, a double hit or something like that. It's gonna be dumb. There we go. And then you just take those even a little bit shorter. I usually do like halfway in between the last bars there, those measure bars. You can even do it shorter, like that. then if you want, you can even add like more effects where like you could say add another like EQ on there, and then you can like take out like a bunch of this energy, so it's only like mid energy.
Just turn the volume down.
Yeah,
on 'em.
you can do whatever you want. You can also create automation clips. I feel like we'll do that at like another time because we're going pretty long here on the stream. But yeah. And then could even like that, just take a little bit of that energy out, and then you can like continue on with this melody if you want. What I usually do is I usually just kind of take what I want from what we had at the beginning, and then I post it right there. So I just hold control, select what you want, hold control C to copy it, and then you press control B, not V, B, and then that will post it in front, in the next, right in front of the your playlist here.
Tried that kickback out.
But yeah, I know, I saws, and I don't think it's actually drag out. It's that. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, so we changed the kick on that one. Let's drag it back out, make it cleaner, and then we got this from our transition. So for even here, like I would like, you want to like have like a little bit of like an intro build up. So I would actually take the perk out, so it's just the underlying melody.
I was gonna say take the fucking melody out, leave the perk in.
Yeah, we could do that. Like, it's always about experimenting. Like you just gotta find what sounds best for you. So we can take that out. For me, that sounds a little too dry.
Yeah.
So we'll leave that sample in. We'll take out the perk. And actually, I'm also gonna take out the chants.
Yep.
So because you don't want to like have all that energy coming into like, you know, another person's part. And then I'm just gonna take a little bit of hi-hat out of the last end, and then I'm gonna be like, probably gonna do this. So I'm actually gonna cut this guy and copy that, and then I'm gonna drag him over here. Actually, we'll put it like here, and then I'll put it like here. Yeah. Drag that hi-hat back so a lot of energy is here, and then we'll just kind of do like a do another cut up or something right here. Make these a little bit shorter, and depending on how long this goes, I might actually leave a little bit longer, but yeah, something like that. And then I'll actually make these a little bit shorter because they're not ending as fast as I want it. Yeah, something like that. And then basically where you want all the energy back again, so we're just gonna take our initial guy, and then you're gonna do the same thing, control C and then B. It's gonna go over the next part, that's fine. It'll drag as a whole to the next part. Just make sure that it lines up on the beginning of the next measure there, and just drag that back. And yeah, well, we'll probably leave it like that for now. And okay, let's hear how that sounds. Cool. And then we're just gonna hit that melody back in. And then this part, yeah, I'm actually gonna leave all this stuff in. If it was 2-person part, I would actually make this way longer. I would make this probably double as long for my part and for his part. But since we got 3 people on there, we're going to cut a little bit short. We're only going to give, what is that? 16 bars maybe? Yeah, so 16 bars. Only 16 bars. If we're doing it with just me and him, it's usually 32, unless it's like a song that has maybe a hook on it or has like a longer intro or a longer outro, depending on what we're doing. So, oh god. So with this one, we're gonna leave it at 16. And you know what? Yeah. So we're ending at like 52, 55. So that's like perfect for, I'd say, like another part to come in. And that's a good template to just kind of post like 3 times, and then have like another one to have like an intro, and you can do, or outro, and do whatever you want with it. So like we still have a bit of time here. So actually I might drag that out for like another bit. So we're ending at like 2:11. It's kind of funny with songs these days, because a lot of songs that I hear actually are only between, you know, two minutes and like 2 and 40 minutes, 2 minutes and 40 seconds.
Some aren't even that long.
Yeah,
some are like 1 minute and 30 seconds.
Yeah, it's crazy to like listen to old hip hop or older songs, and they're like, you know, like 3 minutes, 4 minutes long. Sometimes you're like, wow, like how long? Like how could you go that long in a song? And then, you know, then I think about like bands like Between the Buried and Me, and they have like songs that are like 13 minutes long. So
yeah, people don't have the fucking attention span for that shit these days.
No. So we just wanted to hit it quick, get it done with. They know what we're about. So now we kind of got our layout. The way that I do this part is we got like our bass part, how we want it to sound. That's like our main pattern, our first pattern. But when we go into like a verse, kind of want to change it up a little bit so it doesn't sound the same every time. Honestly, for the ones that are, you know, like the ones that carrying the energy, I'm probably gonna keep it the same as the intro for the outro and for these guys. But for these verses, I'm gonna change them up. And then we also want to change up the transitions between the verses as well. So let's get into that. So we'll start with the first verse. Okay, so right off the bat there, we know we have to change this up. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to make these unique. So what this does is it creates another pattern here, and then that way you don't get mixed up by being like, oh, it's this one that I want to bring out onto the arrangement. No, it's going to be this one, or it's going to be the next one. Whichever ones that you plan on putting in the arrangement, it's always nice to see that you have a number 2 or a number 3, however many different arrangements that you got going on. Yo, Man Deep, shout out.
What up, blood?
What up, cuz? So with the kick here, I'm just going to kind of change it up a little bit. We'll go into our piano roll. All right, so this is what our piano roll looks like. So like maybe I want to kind of give like the energy back to like the kick rather than like the 808 is like the main focus in this one. So we can add a little more flair on the kick here. So maybe like say like nope. We'll add it to the end metal. Maybe add another one in there. Yeah, add a little pop.
Subtle spice.
Subtle spice. Let's go. So Yeah, so just kind of give it like a little more bounce now that the 808's not there. And then we'll probably put one right after that snare. I don't like that either.
Not a fan of that.
Maybe put a triplet in there. Put a one in there. That's not middle. Is that middle? Yeah, that's middle.
That was middle. Man, we gotta sample this one day.
It's a fucking terrible noise.
No, we're doing it.
Okay, so we've got like the first part done. Now we're gonna be doing the second part. Right there, I think a triplet. And then we take these out. That's too much.
Take that one out.
Yeah.
Oop. Whoa.
There we go.
Whoa.
And then I think for this one, we're actually gonna take out the roll. Because
Yeah.
I kind of want that to be like the nice underlie
Yep.
on the energy with the 808. Maybe put one in the middle.
Nope.
Nope.
Can't put a kick on a snare.
No, it doesn't work.
Take this kick out. Maybe put that kick in actually. Take out the one that. Nope.
No.
Don't do that.
No.
Don't fucking listen to me.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah. Little flair, little subtle spice.
Subtle spice.
See, there. We already created our second one, so we can compare. This is our first one. So even there, I'd probably be like, let's see. Maybe even take out the hi-hats there.
Take them out where the snare hits.
Yeah, hi-hats. Usually 9 times out of 10, you need to take your hi-hats out to make a good transition.
Wait. Let me see this for a second.
You're not just gonna tell me what you want? Okay, I already know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take the other melody.
Yeah.
Just perk.
Just perk. Perk. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just ride that fucking perk out, baby.
Yeah. I would maybe take out that last snare. Yeah.
Because that's...
Yeah, leave that one, just not that echo one.
Oh, yeah. So sometimes like having a little like hi-hat or a little perk, whatever you're using to like kind of have little accents in there, it's nice to kind of leave until you have like a transition. So we already have our second bass, or sorry, second kick ready to go there. The snare, we can edit a little bit, not much. So like maybe there I would change up like this hit and maybe put it with that guy instead of that guy over there. Make it a little bit closer. And then maybe do like a snare.
Do it triple, do it.
Right there.
Right after that. No, right after the... try that.
Yeah, except that's not centered. There we go.
Drop the pitch.
It's because it's on a kick.
Yeah, you can change that.
Nah. Not about that.
I was thinking of putting it on the snare before.
Well, there. Yeah, we can try it. Yeah, except we'll probably lower the velocity a little bit on it.
Yeah.
That's the easy way. That up there. And we don't really need that in there.
No.
Honestly, I kind of leave that second one in there. That's fine.
Yep.
You know what we didn't do though?
What?
We didn't make it unique.
Fuck!
That's fine.
No.
Yeah, because
no.
if we
No, it's ruined.
if we make it unique now,
yeah.
then it won't delete that pattern, but it might go back on all
don't
of
do
the
it
history.
Now. Don't do it now.
No. You make it unique, and then you just...
Yeah, it's not doing shit.
That's fine. Whatever.
Told you not to do it.
Fuck it. So, yeah. Always remember to do that, because then you'll end up like us, looking dumb and accidentally ruining our whole fucking snare now. But it's fine, because like that was just over there. That wasn't... That was...
Whoa.
Let's go. let's take this note there. So right there, we're gonna add a roll. You want to do half as much as that, I think. Yep, and then we just right click that, bring it down, nice roll like that. Fixed.
That's how we do it.
All right, so we make it unique, and then we added our hi-hat. So there's a bunch of stuff going on here. So basically, we just kind of take the same ideas that we're using throughout this pattern, and we just change them up. So in here, let's just listen to what we got in the beginning. So right there, kind of takes away from the energy of the kick, so we'll kind of take that out. Might add like a double time. Like that, kind of accents the kick coming in. And then maybe take this guy out. Maybe actually do a roll on this guy instead. So like, yeah. We'll add a roll like that. A little bit shorter.
I actually liked it.
First
one. One more.
And yeah, it needs one in the middle. Yeah, like that. And then take this guy out. Let's put one there. Let's put one there. That's not the middle. That's the middle. Maybe even like kind of like a skip and a hop in between them.
Ba-da-da.
Yeah. Da-da-da. Da-da-da.
Yep.
Just like that. Start here. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Like that or something.
No.
Like that.
Yep.
That's how you do that. And I like this triplet idea, but I'm actually going to like delete, delete, delete.
Yeah.
Like that. Nope. Like that. See, so that snare comes in. Can't do that there. So we'll do. Wait, yeah, I can't. I would love to put it there, but the snare's there. So we'll do like a deleted, and we'll drop it. Like that.
I'm cool with that.
Word up. Next part. Just drop those down. Take that out. Take that out. Maybe even put a little speedy in there. Gotta put a hit in there. Actually, right there. I'm actually gonna put that there.
Okay.
And this is the I don't know what timing it is because I am tired right now and I forget what they are. But basically, it just kind of gives a not that one. Actually, it was the end ones. That's fine. Okay, so how I do these ones, you'll know what I'm talking about when you hear it. It's like triplets. Thank you.
Well, yeah, it's like a 3/4 feel, but
yeah,
without the beat being in 3/4.
All these, this is 24 cells. So when you want a triplet, you go divide by 3, which will be 8 in this case. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then that'll land like that. And then you can just basically copy it. Oof. That is not where I wanted that.
That went real far.
Yeah, that went real far.
Because that part's unselect. That part is good.
Let's try that again. Nope. It's not selected. That's what I'm saying.
The fuck?
Yeah. So that's not working. So what we'll do is we'll just copy and then we'll do V and then we'll move it.
Yeah.
There. Now you can hear it. Like that. So there, and we just did our second variation of our hi-hat. So this is kind of like the layout that we have. So what I like to do is I'll make all that how I want it for, you know, a variation of the verse, and then I'll just take whichever ones that I want to take out, select those, and we're gonna put those in there like so, and copy and paste it again. And then we just gotta make another transition for this guy. So usually take the hi-hats out. And then for this part, hard to say. I think I might actually just do like maybe like a tape down or something on this one. Like that. So we go into here. Go into our VSTs and crap, which one was it again?
Oh yeah.
It was the tape, something or other. If you always get, I have a lot of VSTs, a lot, and it's good and bad. I still need to manage them because there's a whole bunch of pathways I need to clean up that I keep putting off. So just wait for our VSTs to come up. All right, and then yeah.
Goodbye. Date? Just kidding.
Yeah, no date. Okay, tape stop right there.
Yeah.
So usually I'll highlight the ones that you just downloaded. D blue tape stop.
You're right there.
Yeah, there we go. Here we are. So this one, and with this one, you have to use an automation clip to do that. So this is the trigger. See? Once it goes past 0.5, it stops. See?
I just want to put that in so many other places.
We might actually do that. So what I like to do is with this one, make an automation clip for this guy. So we'll close that. And then you'll see on your project that I made this little guy right here. This little guy. So you're gonna make it hit probably on this last hit right here. And then we'll drop it back down. So that right there, that little rectangle, that's literally what's gonna be like on like your reverb, sometimes on your delays, anything, you know, like basically to do with like any like effects that you want to like dip out for only certain parts. Like that.
Like that.
Yeah. So that's how you do it. You can also affect how much of the slowdown you want. If there's any declick, like it has a declicker in there, so like when it does dive out, it doesn't make the sample go clat. So you gotta go.
gotta
All
pee,
right.
man.
All right, you get out of here, man.
Yeah, not coming back.
Fuck off. All right. So yeah, we got our tape stop there. So. We might actually, yeah, we'll bring that up for the last hit. And then we already did this kind of same transition, so let's chop it up even more. Bring that in, and then let's say we do that like a couple more times. Like we go bam, 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 or something like that. We're gonna go like here, paste that. And then we're gonna take the snare out since that kick is hitting there. You can even do like a double time or something. Did it. Move those over. Move those about like there. Copy and paste those and move them over there. And we'll do triple. And then we might even like extend those just a tiny bit. That last one will extend a little bit longer. Like that. And you know what, to be honest, we might even change the lineup a little bit. Or the layout, I mean. We might even, like, for me, I might actually add another long part with that energy in there, and then have 1, 2, 1, 2, that kind of thing. That might actually work out better if that's what you think would be cool.
Nah.
I was just saying maybe we should do 1 low energy, 2 high energy, and then cut like the ending a little bit like shorter instead of having like a long fade out.
Yeah.
So instead of 16 bars, we'll have 24.
Yeah.
If that works.
Yeah, I'm cool with that.
I kind of like that layout a little bit because it kind of gives you like a nice longer piece to like just go hard on.
Yeah, it's true.
You can have something that kind of like, you know, warm up to, and then you just go hard for like the rest of your part.
I also think like maybe in like the middle section, like up in this area, we should take the kick out and just leave the 808 in there. Something.
I mean, this is just another verse.
Yeah, I know, but for the start of the verse, just to vary it so every verse isn't starting that kick pattern.
Yeah, I see what you're getting at. Yeah, I'll probably
keep the energy up in like the middle of the song.
Yeah.
Keep the 808 in there without the kick on it though.
Yeah.
Riding.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, we'll do that. I also will probably say that we'll probably be ending our stream in like 7 minutes because it's pretty long already.
Yup.
2 hours is pretty long. Thanks to everyone who's actually watched this long.
We got 4 whole likes, man.
Dang.
We're popular as shit.
Thanks everyone. Actually, that's really cool to see. You know, everyone starts somewhere, and I don't care if you start at the bottom, you work your way up, and that's fun.
I'm starting to get drunk.
Shit. All right, so we're gonna do that. We're gonna make a nice double long part like that, and we are also going to extended these guys because those can go into the next part. That's fine. And then that one can be cut short for the transition, and that's fine. And then I'm gonna do the same thing with this one. Move that over. And then gonna do this. Actually, we don't get out of here. Do that. And then put that all the way. That all the way just to make sure. And then this one, I accidentally took the crash out, so we put it back in. And then
Crash hitting. Like every second measure, maybe, but that's a lot.
I know. We're not there yet.
We're just there if you want to be.
We're just painting right now, man. We're just painting.
Bob Ross and this bitch.
All right. And then this one, I'll probably just take out like everything and just have like the 808 drop out, and then top it all off. And then that can be like a fade out. And look, we're good at like a 240. That's good. I like that. That's a good mark to stop at. And we're gonna save because we haven't done that once, and that is a terrible thing to do.
We dumb as shit.
Yeah, we do that sometimes, and it sucks.
Literally lost like entire songs by doing that before.
Yeah. All right.
Would not recommend it.
Let's see what we got so far here. Also gonna change that because that's not supposed to be there.
Oh,
yeah, it's definitely supposed to be at the end, so we're gonna move that over. For here, I think we're actually gonna change up the 808 just a tiny bit. Let's put like a little slide in there. Go like there. No, right, slide. You know, you actually gotta slide it when you do that.
Yeah. Maybe I kind of not.
Yeah, no, actually, I liked it the way that it was.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you should cut it right there, though. Yeah, maybe bring that one back.
Yeah, like that. So, let's see.
What's that plugin called?
Okay, so yeah, that plugin is called, sorry, I'll go to my mixer here. It is called D-Blue Tape Stop. And I'm actually pretty sure that's a free pack that you can find online. I just forget what it's called, that whole pack. I think it's just D-Blue. But basically it's just this, it looks super simple, like it's like FL, kind of based at VSTs, but the trigger only happens with that tape stop when it hits 0.5. So what I did was I actually created an automation clip, and then if you look on my playlist here, I got that trigger right here for that automation clip, and I just make it come in right before that hits the next beat right there. Like has a nice little
subtle spice.
Little subtle spice. Like that. You can also edit like how to how fast you want it to slow down or how slow. You can always change that. That's up to you. Like if I put it up to 0.5. That's faster, right? And then you can put it down and it makes it slower. Like that. But usually I like it at the 0.25. That's good for this kind of beat. It's a good, nice little subtle spice there. So back into our piano roll here. So maybe even change that up. It's like all right.
I would take out that one.
Yeah. Maybe even like put that back up, maybe. Maybe even like have that one still up high, but even slide it.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Bit extended.
Yeah, we'll leave that one in. Oh, sick. And we did that again, so
Didn't make you
didn't make it unique.
Okay, don't do it now. Undo everything you just did. It's easier to go in and change all that. I don't remember
What
we had
if
as.
what if I copied it?
Ooh. Okay.
Would that work?
Okay, copy this
Yeah.
and then undo everything.
Yeah. Cause like yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Undo it all so it's back to the way it was before.
Okay, let's try that. Whee! I think. Okay. Okay, so that's our original one. Now let's see if this works. Make unique. And then we're just gonna fucking what am I doing? Actually
Control.
let's do that.
What?
Yeah. That's what I wanted.
Oh.
Cause if I deleted it, then it would have repasted all of these original ones. So I need to take out all the original ones. And now we have our second one that we just put on there. Yeah.
I got an idea.
Yep.
Quick little idea.
Yep.
Just go to the end. Let me just.
I mean, it was on there on the original.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. That's why I moved it back down.
Yeah.
I actually don't mind that if it's just on the.
Yeah.
And then we'll just copy paste that. Make sure that lines up. this transition also different.
I think what we should do is put the 808. So I'm gonna keep this.
Wait.
You could do that. Another idea. Right out.
Yeah. One second. So you did. Need that note.
Triple that when I see.
Yep.
Damn. There.
Yep. That works for me. How's it sound for y'all? So like,
Not on this.
not on this one.
Nah, on the middle. The middle. Yeah.
It's because you want that on your part.
Yep. So I'm gonna fuck with it. Come on. Need one of those notes.
Just undo. Just undo. There you go.
Yeah, you're staying there. Want to do, but can I do it?
You also just got rid of that one that you wanted.
Fuck me, man. Don't drink and make music.
Or do, you know.
Longer. Unique and Try that out. We're gonna cut it out.
Sure.
I actually like that.
Word.
Thanks, dude.
Yeah, Rudolph, you got the fire, bro.
Nope.
Another one after that. Same note.
Like right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Copy that on over and then.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's how it gotta be. Add a little space there so you can hear that. Even I might actually leave it up until that, maybe.
Yeah, try that. Yep.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's the money. Alright, well I think that's all we're gonna do for tonight. But yeah, thanks for everyone who watched the stream today. We'll probably be doing more of these, so keep posted on either our YouTube, our Facebook, our Twitter. It's all the same handle, anti-xotm. Except for our YouTube, it's just anti-otm. But yeah, you can keep updated on there. We got music on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, and SoundCloud. Anti-otm. That's all you really gotta search. Chain of the Grave is our latest album. We just came up with a new single with Pariah called Pandemonium. So check that out. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys.